Marriage is often sold as the ultimate partnership, a place where two people share their lives, their dreams, and their responsibilities. But for many men, the reality of marriage is far from the fairy tale they've been promised. From the moment they say, "I do," they're thrust into a role that demands more than they can often give: financial provider, emotional anchor, and protector. What most men don't realize is that this seemingly equal partnership can turn into a situation where their needs are sidelined, their emotions are suppressed, and the weight of the relationship falls squarely on their shoulders. Today, we're revealing the hidden truths about how marriage exploits men and why so many men find themselves paying the price. The illusion of equality. From the moment we're born, society begins to mold us into specific roles. Roles that we must play in order to fit in, to find acceptance, and to be seen as valuable. One of the most significant roles that men are conditioned to take on is that of the provider, the protector, the leader in a relationship. And this role becomes especially ingrained in marriage. It's something that we are taught from a young age, that marriage is the ultimate bond of equality. But is that the reality for men? The concept of equality in marriage often exists more as an ideal than an actual practice. We're told that marriage is about two people coming together to share their lives equally. The narrative that women and men are equal partners in love, work, and emotional investment sounds beautiful in theory. But what happens when you pull back the curtain on this supposedly balanced relationship? The truth is that many men find themselves under constant pressure to meet a set of expectations that go far beyond what they bargained for. They're expected to be emotionally available to support their spouse's dreams, to provide financially, and to be the one to resolve conflicts. All the while, society still expects men to suppress their own emotions, to avoid showing weakness, and to keep being the rock of the relationship. This creates an imbalance in the marriage, one that's often difficult to see on the surface, but profoundly affects men's well-being. Take a look at how relationships are often framed by society. Men are conditioned to believe that marriage will bring them companionship, stability, and a deep emotional connection. But what happens when the reality falls short of these expectations? What happens when a man gives everything he has, his time, his energy, his resources, only to realize that his needs and desires are being overlooked or undervalued? The very idea of equality becomes a trap, a promise that sounds good in theory, but is rarely realized in practice. This imbalance is especially clear when we start looking at the responsibilities that men bear in a marriage. Men are expected to provide, protect, and serve as the emotional pillar of the relationship. Yet, when a problem arises, the weight often falls solely on their shoulders. While women are praised for their nurturing qualities, men are expected to hold everything together, often without being allowed the space to express their own emotions or needs. In many cases, men are not encouraged to ask for help or to even admit when they feel overwhelmed. The financial aspect of marriage provides another stark example of this inequality. Men traditionally are seen as the financial providers. They are expected to bring home the income, manage the bills, and often sacrifice their own ambitions for the sake of providing for their family. Meanwhile, the notion of shared finances is often only a surface-level ideal. Men are expected to carry the full weight of financial responsibility, all while keeping up with the pressures of a demanding career and maintaining a sense of personal success. On the other hand, women in many marriages are often encouraged to focus on emotional well-being, nurturing the family, and supporting their partner's ambitions, But this doesn't mean that women don't face their own set of societal pressures. In fact, women are also expected to fulfill certain roles that include being emotionally available, maintaining the household, and making sure the relationship remains stable. However, these pressures are often portrayed as natural or innate qualities, while the pressure on men to provide and protect is seen as an external force that burdens them. But why does this illusion of equality persist despite the deep-rooted roles that men are expected to fill? One of the most powerful reasons is the societal structure that continues to reinforce these traditional gender roles from a young age. Boys are taught that being strong means sacrificing their own needs for the good of others. Men are told that being a man means providing for their families, taking on challenges alone, and being the one who keeps the household running smoothly. They are expected to embody stoic resilience, even when they are silently burning out from the weight of these expectations. This imbalance often goes unnoticed because it's so ingrained in how we think about relationships. When a man works long hours to support his family, he's not seen as a victim of exploitation. He's seen as a hard-working, responsible partner. When a man stays emotionally stoic, providing strength for his wife and children, he's seen as a rock. But who holds the man when he feels like he's about to crumble under the weight of it all? The expectation that men should always be the ones to provide, protect, and hold everything together is not only unfair, it's dangerous. It limits men emotionally, financially, and personally. Men are expected to give everything of themselves, but when it comes time to receive something in return, the rules are suddenly different. The idea of equality becomes distorted in a way that benefits the expectations society has set for men, but does little to address the emotional needs that men often quietly struggle with. Ultimately, the illusion of equality in marriage masks the deeper truths about the dynamics at play. Men are expected to give in ways that go unnoticed, to carry burdens that are often invisible to others, and to maintain their role as the strong, silent partner. When we talk about the sacred nature of marriage, we must also acknowledge that there's a darker side to it, a side where the promises of mutual respect and equality are not always lived up to. In truth, the equality we often talk about in marriage is more of a myth than a reality. Men are expected to be everything: providers, protectors, emotional anchors, without being allowed the same level of vulnerability or emotional release that women often receive. The very idea of equality is distorted, hidden under layers of unspoken expectations, societal norms, and an overwhelming pressure to perform in ways that few can truly maintain. The financial burden. When most people think of marriage, they often imagine the idea of shared responsibilities, to people coming together to pool their resources, support each other, and build a life together. But for many men, the reality of marriage comes with an overwhelming financial burden that often falls squarely on their shoulders. The idea that marriage is an equal partnership can feel more like a facade when it becomes clear that men are often the ones expected to carry the heaviest financial load. From the moment a man enters a marriage, he is conditioned to believe that he is the primary provider. Society, family, and even the woman he marries place this expectation on him, whether it's paying for the wedding, covering household expenses, or funding the future of the family. Men are expected to bring home the majority of the income and ensure that the financial foundation of the marriage remains stable. On the surface, this might seem like a noble expectation. After all, providing for a family is a responsibility, but what often goes unspoken is how this pressure can slowly drain a man's energy, time, and emotional well-being. Men are told that being a good husband means financially supporting their wife, but no one ever seems to mention the toll this takes on their mental health, their personal goals, and their happiness. This financial burden doesn't just apply to the day-to-day expenses. It extends to long-term expectations, from paying off debts to funding the children's education. The man is expected to plan for the future in a way that often leaves him feeling trapped. He is expected to sacrifice his own desires, whether they be career ambitions, hobbies, or even personal freedom, to ensure that the family remains financially secure. In some relationships, the financial burden can become even more pronounced. The wife may take on a more passive role in the financial sphere, relying on her husband to make the major financial decisions and provide the majority of the income. This dynamic can feel suffocating for men as they find themselves working harder and longer hours to maintain the lifestyle their wife and children have become accustomed to. The irony here is that while women are encouraged to focus on emotional connection, self-care, and nurturing the family, men are often expected to give up their own needs to provide for the family financially. What happens when the marriage falls apart? This is where the financial burden on men becomes even more glaring. Divorce, which disproportionately affects men in terms of financial consequences, leaves many men scrambling to rebuild their lives, both emotionally and financially. Men who were once the primary providers may find themselves left with a substantial portion of their income going toward child support, alimony, and division of assets. This is in addition to the emotional pain of losing their family and their home. In many cases, a man will have spent years building up his wealth and security, only to have it stripped away in a divorce settlement. He is left paying for the